right, well, let's welcome Megan and Kevin. And Tamara, you're going to come up with us? Come up here. Come on up, guys. How are you? Getting used to this, being on stage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting there.
All right, well, what does this mean? Releasing the shrapnel of the soul. What's going on here?
Yeah, so releasing shrapnel from the soul is something that it's a phrase that I realised in the last few months is effectively what has happened to me over the last few years. I am going to cry, I am going to get emotional. Before I do that too badly, I want to say really sincerely though that we're not standing up here and we didn't put our story in to try and get the sympathy vote. We didn't. And that said, if you think this is about me, it's not. And it's not about Megan. It's not about Dimna. It's about you. Very, very genuinely. We're here for you. And men in particular, we're going to ask you to put your guard down. Believe that this is a safe place. And believe that you are amongst friends. So, that said, I was in the army for 20 years and I'm now a civilian search and rescue pilot. And that was the easy stuff. Dealing with what was in here and dealing with what was in here, that's the really hard stuff. And I came home from Afghanistan with some physical shrapnel that went through my bedroom. But what I didn't realise was that I had a whole lot of shrapnel still stuck in here. And Dimna released that for me over the last few years. So that's what that's about.
Thank you, Kevin. So how did we meet?
So we met one day in 2013. I'd fallen in a heap, had a breakdown in 2008 and took 9 months or so to get back to work. And I was functional, but as I said, I was still hurting in here. My dad died at the end of 2012, and that was the real brick to the head moment for me, where I realised that he'd worked for over 45 years, retired with not so much as a thank you. And he had about 6 years from there until he died, and most of that time was spent in and out of hospitals. Now, that's no quality of life. He did everything he could for us within the means and the education that he had. But I looked at it and I thought, Christ, is that as good as it gets? Is that really what it's all about? And so I went in search of a better life and found Dimna. Megan, not so interested. So dragged her along to the one dayer. And on the one condition, we weren't signing anything. And Megan said, well, that made sense to me, so why aren't we signing up? Beauty, let's go, quantum. and away we go. And we lined up along with 100 other people to meet Dimna at the end of it. And Megan and I both, we've never told you this, Dimna, Megan and I both thought we were going to vomit.
Really?
We were so...
I'm not that scary.
Yes, you are.
It wasn't that you were scary, it was that I thought I was going to fail again.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to fail. And I didn't want to spend this money and fail again.
And men particularly tend to bring forward their experiences of the past into the future unless they work on it. And congratulations for working on it and changing all of that.
Thank you.
So your position when you started with us at ILRE?
In short, we'd done just about everything wrong. We bought off the plan. We'd sold the only place we actually should have kept. We had bought two negative geared properties that were hurting us 45 grand a year. Done just about everything wrong.
Along the way, you bought a vacant acreage property or something?
Yeah, we had to buy the dream, right?
Yeah.
And that was part of the escapism. That's what we thought. And unfortunately, it was at that dream. Unfortunately or fortunately, it was out at that dream property where, in the front yard, the final meltdown happened. And then a couple of years later, we realised, about 2 years later, we realised that we had no life, we had a mortgage we couldn't jump over, and psychologically, I couldn't stand the place anymore. I couldn't stay there anymore. So there was a whole bunch of reasons to leave.
And obviously that puts a great deal of burden of support for you.
Yes, and as we continue with the story, you'll see where it's impacted me with having this huge mortgage, the house, but being in a support role for Kevin at the same time. It was a constant watching regime when we were living out there.
So that was actually the numbers. You had a PPR, you had a couple of investment properties, and your 45k negative cash flow.
Yep.
And you're working in a job you're not totally happy with.
Yeah, that's right. So this is 2013. I was flying. Actually, I just need to show you something at the moment. Can you just turn that mic off, please? The reason I don't have one of these mics at the moment is because if I put it up here, and it's actually reasonably well controlled at the moment. Dimna's seen it. I've almost thrown it off stage before. I can fly rescue helicopters, no problem. I just put a post up yesterday on Facebook about a job I did last week. It actually it looks pretty good. Neil, yep, happy. In 2013, so I was flying. I was at work, but not particularly happy. Not happy about it. And like I say, now that I met Dimna, it was very, very quickly that we realised there's a much better way of doing this.
Okay, so the action's taken.
So we started our own property school at home. We
With the kids?
No, not with the kids. We put the kids to bed, and then we said it was mum and dad's time to do homework. So our homework was watching DVDs and tuning into the webinars and doing grid variance analysis. And we did as much education as we possibly could to better ourselves for going forward with property. But we also did coaching and mentoring. We really value the input of a coach to teach you to see something that you can't see and to really step up and improve your life. And we financially restructured so that we could actually uncross-securitise those lovely negatively geared properties that we had so that we could move forward without any risk.
So the PPR deal, what happened with that?
With this, we bought the house. It's only 3 bedrooms. We have 3 children, so the boys were sharing a room. It was intended that we would always put in a 4th bedroom, but after the one-day event, we went, oh, that grid variance analysis, we need to go and look at it. And just like you were saying before, the median in our suburb between a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom, by spending $5,000 on a wall, we jumped up $150,000 in value, and we gave the kids the extra bedroom. So
that's pretty good for a wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, what you're talking about, 2 + 1 = 100,
Yep.
right? It just so happened that in our suburb, 3 + 1 = 150.
There you go.
Yeah.
They're good maths.
Awesome maths.
And I got it.
Okay, so we picked that up. Then you decided, oh, let's go and do a block of 7.
Yeah, right? Doesn't everyone do that as their first deal?
What did I tell you at the time?
I can't recall.
In fact, I don't think it was just Dimna that was saying don't do it if we haven't done a single house or even maybe a duplex. Let's not jump into 7 just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So the intention with this was actually to be a set and forget, and that's a phrase that Dimna uses. House on the front of a block, large backyard, you can put a duplex or something else out the back, subdivide the house off the front. That was the intention here. I was about 300 mil short on the width of the block to be able to do the subdivision. So we could only strata it, and then the numbers didn't work. So then we tried a triplex out the back, and we tried a 4-pack out the back, and the numbers weren't working. So I said, stuff it, 7, let's go. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. anyway, the only way we got through it still with our clothes on was because of Dimna guiding us along the way to make sure that it was a successful outcome. Megan was managing it on a day-to-day basis. Thankfully, we found an outstanding builder, but it was the accumulation of a whole bunch of good energy that brought that to fruition. That said, during the time that we built it, it was a 15% downturn due to a flood of the same stock, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom stock on the market, and it was a 15% downturn. But we're still going to end up with about $100,000 profit.
And I remember a conversation very early on when we were talking, okay, so what's the numbers on this 7 townhouse? And Megan was just absolutely petrified to even consider spreadsheets and how you do the numbers. So that was a huge learning for you to even embrace feasibilities and how you do the numbers, and now you just, you just crunch them out like it's, nothing for you.
Yeah, big learning for me. I used to play with the Monopoly money to make sure that the deal worked before I could put it on a spreadsheet. So I don't need the Monopoly money anymore. I can do it straight onto the spreadsheet. So that's a big change for me.
And that's okay. That's part of the learning as well. Don't feel that, that there's something wrong with that. That's how it is. So understand that that's the next thing that you need to challenge and to get on top of, because the numbers do matter. How you do them doesn't matter, but the numbers do matter.
Absolutely.
Now you've got your PPR. Yep. Let's make some money.
Absolutely. So 3 + 1 equaled 150. Mm-hmm. Well, 4 + 1 we found out equals 150 as well. And $24,000 positive cash flow by converting a couple of utility rooms, which were dark and dingy, into a light, bright, airy, beautifully renovated, self-contained studio rented out on Airbnb for 11 months of the year, because we still want to go on holidays and use other people's Airbnb. Mm-hmm. So that's $24,000 a year from 11 months.
Very good.
And that's what, at 80% or something, 80-90% occupancy.
85% occupancy, and I'm loving it because I get to talk to people.
So I think that was one of the biggest learnings, not only obviously to create the positive cash flow, but Megan really found what her calling was, yep. Which is, and you've probably already experienced this, Megan is absolutely a people person. She's out there talking to people. So the Airbnb, gives her that outlet, and obviously it has the money benefits, but you've really found your niche and where your strengths are. And obviously Kevin has his strengths, so for Megan to really embrace what it is that inspires her in the whole property journey, because we show all these strategies, but not every strategy suits every person. So to actually find out what that is for you is unlocking the key to then what else you can potentially deliver on. And
I remember at a recent event you were doing a happy dance.
Yes.
What was that for?
The
Airbnb thing.
I became super host in my first quarter, so I was very excited.
Yay! So, super host. Then you did a super fund deal.
Yes, we just set up our self-managed super fund. We actually bought one of our townhouses and put it into the super fund, and we've been doing private money lending through our self-managed super fund. And also, in the last 2.5 years, our total growth is 41%. So quite impressed with that.
Pretty good, very good in your super fund, yeah. So what's next? More important things than money?
Yeah. Like we said at the beginning, our journey here is not, being up here is not really about us. It's about the change that we've made to ourselves, but the change that you can make to yourself. Releasing the shrapnel from Kevin's soul, I didn't realise through all the years that I was supporting Kevin through the journey of what PTSD is, that I was actually trapped as well. And I've been set free. I can have people come to our house. The idea of having an Airbnb 3 years ago would have been unheard of. There's no way Kevin would have allowed us to have guests, let alone strangers, coming anywhere near our house. We've got some dear friends here today who have known us for 10 years, and they didn't even know that Kevin had had the breakdown in 2008. Neither did our family. So it was only until this year that I was able to step out of that shadow and be me again. And we were living a life of shame and secrets. And it was really holding us back. But now we live in a place of gratitude, because without that journey, we wouldn't be up here today. I wouldn't have this man next to me. We've accepted what happened. Thank you. We're living now with that gratitude in a place of congruence. So we're following our hearts, and we're teaching our children that mental health is common, and you can live with a mental health issue and you can live a better life with mental health issues. And that's where we're moving towards, and that's far more important to us than the deals.
Yeah. When we started with Platinum, we said to Dimna straight off the bat that we're here to fix our head and our hearts, and if any money comes along, then that's a bonus. And you'll see when we get to the end, the money has improved, no doubt, right? But we're not talking millions and millions of bucks, but let me tell you, this is worth so much more. 1 + 1 is a motto. So mid-2015, I broke down in 2008. Mid-2015 was the first time I was able to talk about it publicly. And it was in a room of about this many people down in Melbourne, or a Platinum conference down there. And you will hear me refer to the Platinum community as the Platinum family. And I said at the start here that particularly for men, this is a safe place. And that was, I found that was the safe place, and that was where I could talk about it for the very first time. The support, the response I got was truly amazing. The world didn't swallow me up. 200 people embraced me there and then, and it was amazing. And since then, 1 + 1 has become a personal motto of mine, and it's got a dozen different meanings. 1 + 1 equals a window, for those of you who knew the joke as a kid, right? 1 + 1 can equal 2, so keep it simple. 1 + 1 can equal more than 2 if you achieve synergy, so look to stack the strategies. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. You've got to take the first step, and then you've got to take action after that. And it means a bunch of other things, not the least of which head and heart, and for us, people and property. So 1 + 1 is actually the number plate on my car, and it was meant to be a reminder for me every time I walk towards my car to think about all those things and to take action. What it's turned into is a conversation starter. And people ask me, mate, can't you do maths? And it's been a great conversation starter. And with that, and with mental health, I could ask an open question right now, if everyone, and I don't want you to do this, but I could ask a question right now, say, hand up if anybody in your family or immediate circle of friends has been affected by cancer. And everybody would be okay to put their hand up. But it is still taboo for me to ask. Put your hand up if anybody in your family or immediate circle of friends has been impacted by mental illness. Thank you. Thank you for those putting their hand up. That is not a conversation that we can yet have publicly in this country or indeed the world. And it's a conversation that I'm changing.
You are changing. You're making a big difference.
Thank you. Early 2015, the coach we were working with, she asked me a question, that is, if I could imagine my story about PTSD, depression, anxiety, contemplating suicide, being in social media. When she asked me that question, I burst into tears, I collapsed. I said, no way, can't imagine it. Since speaking publicly, only a couple of months later, and this is the power of coaching and the power of belief, since sharing it a couple of months later, I've gone on to say that I'm going to be an advocate for mental health and for veterans and emergency services. And then I'm going to take the conversation far more openly. And I'm now, I don't know what ended up on the slide there, but I'm now a welfare representative for the Australian Federation of Air Pilots, specifically around addiction and mental health. I'm a ambassador for Are You OK Foundation. I've spoken at international conferences for disaster management and search and rescue. I was recently interviewed, thank you. I was recently interviewed by Channel 9 as well. That hasn't gone to air as yet. We're waiting to see on that one. I was asked if it was okay for my story to be put into the RSL Queensland newspaper, which goes out to tens of thousands of people. And most amazingly for me, was I was then asked if I would, thank you, go and be interviewed at the Australian War Memorial to talk about my combat experience. And while we were there, I also said, hey, I want to talk about mental health as well, and the impact on the family and the individual. And so my video interview is, I was one of about 20 blokes interviewed, but yeah, so my part is now part of a video display at the Australian War Memorial for everybody who goes there over the next 12 months to see. And three or 4 years ago when we started with Dimpner, Michael Dempsey, Ray, there you are, mate, he'd go around taking his photos, and I said to him, mate, not for me and not for us. So again, I was speaking for us, right? Megan's her own woman. She's allowed to be her own woman. But I was speaking for us and keeping Michael away from us. And I say no, it's not because I didn't like Michael, it's because I didn't like me. I didn't like the bloke looking back in the mirror, because all I saw was a failure. When I was looking to drive my car off a cliff or slice myself open with power tools, I thought I'd failed. Woodworking was my hobby. I had a shed full of tools. I built furniture and all sorts of stuff. And I couldn't put a nail into a wall to hang a picture without crying, wailing on the floor. And I thought I'd failed. I honestly thought I'd failed. My country, the community, my family, my parents. And I sure didn't want my photo taken so that I could look at myself on the screen and see myself as a failure again. And that was only 3 years ago. And now I'm quite happily sitting in front of the camera, getting interviewed to talk on national TV or in the War Memorial, or stand up on stage and talk about this. And there is no way in God's earth I thought that was going to happen 3 years ago. And there was also no way on earth 3 years ago I thought I'd now be having conversations with people, with two men in particular, who I've been directly involved in turning their lives around, one from mental health and one from addiction. And they're now back with their families, they're now back at their jobs, they're now getting on with their lives, they're cherishing every new day that comes. The fellow who fell foul of addiction, I spoke to him last week to catch up with him again, and he's now 168 days sober.
Yeah.
And that is just amazing. And I wouldn't have done that if I didn't sit there. And if I sat there but didn't do anything, I still wouldn't be able to be standing here. And I still wouldn't have been able to help those two men get back to their families. So thank you, Dimna.
You're writing a book.
I am writing a book, and the title is Releasing Shrapnel from the Soul.
When's it going to be finished?
By Anzac Day. It'll be published by Anzac Day.
That'll help a lot of people.
It will. It will, absolutely. And that's why people have been telling me for the better part of 10 years I need to write a book.
But you had to be ready.
I had to be ready. I didn't want to write a book that was Kevin's story. That was Kevin grew up here, Kevin went there, Kevin did this, Kevin did that, right? I always knew it had to be a book that had some meaning behind it. And it's only been in the last few months that I've really worked out what that meaning actually is. And that's to tell my story, to show a whole bunch of other people, and particularly men, that you can recover. That mental health is normal, manageable and recoverable for the majority of people. And that you can get better, you can get on with life, and you can have an amazing life.
So on behalf of all of those people that you have helped and will help in the future, by being brave enough to share your story, we thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So here are the numbers for what it's worth. Not that this is the important part.
And it's not.
No. As you can see now, our net position, we've almost tripled our equity. We're still hurting a little bit with negative gearing. It's still bleeding us. We do have a property on the market. I'm hoping to have the contract signed today with an offer. So hopefully I can turn that round to a positive figure, which will be fantastic. But the personal growth and our contribution back to organisations like Mates for Mates and even to our kids, that's far more important to us than the bottom line and having purpose in life. It's far more important.
Yeah.
So
what advice would you give to people who are perhaps struggling from a where do I go financially, or where am I at from a heart perspective?
First thing is listen to the coaches, and seriously listen, and don't do a 7 townhouse deal first. If someone says to you, go and talk to Megan and Kevin about doing that deal first. I know there's someone in the crowd who came and spoke to me about it. Yeah, don't do it first. Okay, it really did hamstring us for where we could go forward. But having the courage to step up and say, I don't understand. Like for the maths for me, I didn't understand how to do a FISO. I didn't understand the numbers on a spreadsheet. I taught myself how to do it. I asked for help. I got out of my comfort zone. I had built a cocoon around me, and allowing people to tell me that it was okay to acknowledge my role in keeping this man alive, that was key. And listening to the coaches telling me that I was allowed to be me. That's, if someone tells you, be you, step up and be you, because it's the best place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. As we've got in the middle there, wealth without health is pointless. You can be the richest guy in the cemetery if you want to, but you're still in the cemetery, right? So unless you're healthy physically and mentally, then all the money in the world isn't going to do a lot for you. And that was it for us. We had to find our head in our heart. As Kevin Dudney says, the longest journey you'll ever take is the 18 inches between your head and your heart. And it's absolutely true. And it's doubly true for blokes, once again. It's doubly true for blokes. So get yourself sorted out with your health, with your physical health, with your mental health, and everything else will flow.
Thank you very much for sharing. Give me a round of applause.